Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, honorable educators, respected opposition team, and beloved audience. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Raihan from Senior High School 93 East Jakarta as the first speaker of the proposition team. Allow me to elaborate. Today, we are debating a crucial motion stated like this. In areas prone to disasters, this House believes that the state should prioritize disaster mitigation over relocation. And as the first proposition team, we firmly support this motion because when disasters threaten communities, the solution should not immediately be moving people away from their homes or livelihoods because it removes the existence of their identity at the same time. Instead, the state should first prioritize strengthening protection and resilience through disaster mitigation. Relocation should only become the last resort, not the first response to the crisis. Our stance today is simple. The role of the state is protecting them while preserving their social and economic stability. Disaster mitigation includes early warning systems, disaster-resistant infrastructure, environmental restoration, evacuation planning, public preparedness, and so on. Meanwhile, relocation means permanently moving communities away from disaster-prone areas. Dear judges, from the economic aspect, mitigation is more sustainable than relocation. Why? Because relocation often destroys local livelihoods. Farmers lose agricultural land. Fishermen lose access to coastal resources, small businesses lose customers and economic ecosystems that have built for years. Meanwhile, mitigation allows communities to continue their economic activities while becoming safer. A relevant domestic example can be seen after the 2021 mountain eruptions in Lumajang, East Java. In the Badan Nasional Penanggulangan Bencana in 2024, the governments did focus on relocation, but that's not the end. They also focused on reconstruction and strengthening community resilience after the disaster. The governments developed disaster recovery programs, public facilities, economic assistance, a safer infrastructure for affected communities, and so on. And this is important because it shows that disaster management should ensure that communities can recover and continue living sustainably. Meanwhile, several relocation in cases in Indonesia often faced new problems such as limited jobs and lack of infrastructure. If you take a look at the metropolitan city Jakarta, then compare it to other rural places, the comparison is well seen clearly. If you claim that relocation is the best way to move people away from disaster-prone areas, then it would be best to first address areas that lack adequate infrastructure development and improve their well-being afterwards. However, even then, another problem arises: overpopulation. This proves that relocation may reduce physical risk temporarily, but it can also create long-term economic instability if it becomes the primary solution. That is why mitigation should be considered to protect economic continuity in the first place. Ladies and gentlemen, from the social and cultural aspect, communities are not groups of people living in buildings. They live to feed their family while maintaining relationships with them. Communities are built upon traditions, social relationships, emotional attachment, historical identity, etc. Relocation often breaks these connections, and to put it strongly, these are just the tip of the iceberg. And psychologically, losing one's homeland can create trauma comparable to the disaster itself. We can see this clearly in many Indonesian disaster cases where community pervert rebuilding their original areas because of their livelihoods are mainly what they treasure for. That is why mitigation becomes more humane in our role. Mitigation allows communities to remain connected to their environment while still improving safety through preparedness systems. This analogy is like this. Relocation treats communities like movable objects. Mitigation treats communities like ecosystem worth protecting. And resilience becomes strongest when communities themselves remain empowered. Honorable judges, from the political and government aspects, prioritizing mitigation reflects stronger than state responsibility. Why is that so? Because relocation is often used as a shortcut policy. Instead of improving infrastructure and preparedness, the government simply moves citizens away just like that. But responsible governance means reducing risks while preserving citizens' rights. In the Badan Nasional Penanggulangan Bencana Statement through its 2024 Rehabilitation and Reconstruction Framework, disaster management should focus on preparedness and sustainable resilience building. This matters greatly because Indonesia is geographically vulnerable to national and natural disasters due to its location in the ring of fire, such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, flood, and landslides. If relocation becomes the primary solution and response for every disaster-prone region, the millions of Indonesians may continuously lose homes. Another relevant example is flood management discussion in Jakarta. For years, experts emphasize that long-term solutions should prioritize drainage improvements, river normalization, green open spaces, and flood mitigation of infrastructure instead of simply relocating residents. Because Jakarta's economic and social complexity makes mass relocation unrealistic and socially disruptive. The smarter solution is not abandoning cities, but the smarter solution is making cities safer. Now, the opposition team may also state and argue that relocation completely removes people from danger, while mitigation still leaves risks. Our response is simple. No place on earth is completely risk-free. Even relocation areas may face future disasters, economic instability, or social conflicts. Therefore, the goal of public policy is not eliminating all risks entirely, because that's impossible. Ladies and gentlemen, disaster-prone communities do not need abandonment. They need protection. The role of the state is not merely moving citizens away from danger. The role of the state is to empowering citizens to survive and thrive safely, because homes are their history, and that should not be sacrificed unless absolutely necessary. Therefore, I might conclude this speech. This House firmly believes that in areas prone to disasters, the state should prioritize disaster mitigation over relocation. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.